Hello and welcome. Today, LeadSquared and Diamond are hosting our How a CRM and SIS integration can improve your productivity through automation. And we'll be walking you through that full arc today. And really the big piece is we know how hard it is today to not only get and hire the right people. So you want to make sure that every single person in your organization is efficient and is working as well as possible. And that's really the power of the CRM and SIS. But before we get into that, we can introduce ourselves here. And today is going to be a little bit lighthearted. We want to make sure that we're getting you all the information you need, but we also certainly don't want to bore you either. So without further ado, we'll advance our slides here and let Alan introduce himself.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending upon where you guys are. My name is Alan Garber, and I am the Vice President and General Manager of Diamond SIS. We're really happy to be here today and to talk about the power of combining your CRM with your SIS to increase the productivity. As Douglas said, human capital is probably the most important part of an organization. And to that end, we believe that we empower those people all the way through the student life cycle to make the most of their day. So with that, I'll hand it back to Doug for a brief introduction.
Absolutely. So my name is Douglas Carlson. I lead business development and partnerships at LeadSquared North America. And if you're not familiar with LeadSquared, we are a CRM and marketing platform specifically for education, both proprietary and traditional not-for-profit higher education. And my background, and I'll actually probably flip it back to Alan as well, because he has a really strong background as well. But obviously I'm at LeadSquared now. Previous to that, I was at Penn Foster Education Group, which is a very large online proprietary school. So understand the school system from that space very well. And then previous to that, I was actually a university admission counselor with Southern New Hampshire University. So understand that side of the house as well. So Alan, probably flip it back to you, just give your quick background, give a really good one.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Yes, I have a 20+ year history of career school education, everything from an admissions counselor through marketing to general management of a large school. I was the chief administrative officer and dean of students for a technical trade school in Northeast Florida for many, many years. I was responsible for the overall operations, and I bring to the table a unique perspective on productivity and on development of the business. So Doug says all the time that being in the trenches is really a way to learn the benefits of powerful automation. And I guess I've been serving in those trenches for a long time. So there you go.
You'll have some good stories to share with the team here. So not just the hypothetical, but how it actually works. So why don't we kind of set up today's webinar for folks as they're jumping in. So first and foremost, all attendees are muted today, so it makes it really easy. If you're working from home, like both Alan and I are, so your kids running in the background, your cat walks across your keyboard, you're all in good shape there. You're muted. However, I do want to call out that does not mean you can't communicate with us. So and I'm skipping from bottom to top here, but for any questions, please use the chat functionality, which should be just to the right of your screen. And also we have some interactive polls that we'll have you jump in on. So please use that functionality as well. We just like to get to know our audience a little bit better. If you are running into any issues, so for instance, we're not loud enough for you, or maybe we're too loud for you, please feel free to click that little gear button that is available for you. And that can ultimately change your settings, all those good pieces. And if you want to grab some input, please feel free to chat with us. We actually do have our chat functionality monitored today by Vivica. So thanks for hanging out in the sides and making this all happen for us. So With those ground pieces set, why don't we go ahead and jump into our agenda? So our high level today is really trying to understand the efficiency in those pieces. However, you really can't understand the power of that efficiency and the power of bringing those SIS and CRM systems together if you don't first have a really good understanding of what a world-class CRM and SIS solution are. So I'm going to be walking through the CRM side of things and really just give you some food for thought. Certainly, I can kind of give some anecdotes about LeadSquared, but really it's not just about LeadSquared today. It's really about you thinking about your systems, how they can work together. Maybe you're looking at a new system, maybe you're looking at us, which would be flattered if you are. So we really want to make sure you understand what is good, what is best in class, and really some of the things that you should be thinking about. Alan, on the flip side, will be doing the exact same thing for the SIS system. So really walking through, what's powerful about it, what's important, what are the things you should be thinking about. And then really where this all comes together, and we really can talk about the efficiencies, the reporting, all of the really powerful things about bringing two systems together is really in the integration better together. So first, we want to make sure we have each building block in place, and then we'll ultimately build up to where we are. So as far as making the sausage, we're going to show you each step of the way and then show you the final product here. So let me go ahead and first start with a poll, just because sometimes folks that already have integrated systems, sometimes they don't. So if you wouldn't mind using the polling functionality, we would, and that's just, and probably saw it pop up right there. So if you're looking at your screen, at the bottom right, you should see apps, people, and then polls. We would love it if you would just jump in and give us a quick answer to the question. So first and foremost, are any systems integrated today? And if the answer is no, that's totally fine. That's what we're here to talk about today. If you already have an integrated SIS and CRM or SIS and LMS or really all of the above, we'd be really curious because that'll be an interesting part of the conversation. So when we get to the Q&A section at the end, we'll actually review those results and we can talk about it in a little bit more detail. So if you have a chance to hit that poll for us, we'd really appreciate it. So and that really takes us to understanding your CRM. So, and also if you do not have a CRM today, no problem. We're able to talk to it from both ends of the spectrum. So first and foremost, utilizing your tools to drive top of the funnel performance. So at the end of the day, why in the world would you want a CRM? Why wouldn't you just have an LMS or just have an SIS? And you probably already know all these answers, but let me help kind of illustrate the power of a CRM. So first and foremost, today there are omni channels, and I know I hate these buzzwords, but they're just, this one's right. There are so many darn channels that ultimately a lead can come through today. So, over the past 15, 20 years, that has changed demonstrably. It just used to be pretty straightforward channels. And now you've got everything from social media, landing pages, email campaigns, all these options to purchase leads. You might be working with a marketing agency on SEO, SEM. And honestly, people might be just picking up the phone and calling you or walking in. And at the end of the day, if you're not doing this in a super efficient manner and you don't understand where people are coming from, it makes it very, very hard to optimize these channels. So for those of you that actually might be using, spreadsheets, that's a powerful tool, but at some point it does break down and also slow and inefficient. So for the folks that don't have CRMs, for the folks that do have CRMs, if you don't have the ability today to easily capture literally every single channel or every single way that someone is coming into your system, you're missing out. And some of the legacy CRMs just are frankly missing those pieces. So, Alan, I'm curious, in all of your years, how have you seen lead capture change? And maybe this is a longer answer that I'm asking for, but I'm curious. Yeah. From the beginning to where we are today, what have been the popular channels? What's been working? What's not working?
So I guess when I first got in the business many moons ago, a lead card, response cards from magazine ads, trade journals, radio campaigns, and that type of thing really dominated the lead flow into the telephone calls with yellow page ads. So those all have fallen by the wayside now, and even TV ads today are are QR code based. You always see the QR code up on the TV screen, and people are supposed to scan it with their smartphones. So the generations have changed. It's now really popular social media influence groups. All of these different channels that Doug, you were talking about, really become so finite, and you can target your marketing campaign. But the problem has always been the old adage, 50% of my marketing dollars work. I just don't know what 50% that is. So I would tell you that this is a way to dissect that. Powerful CRMs today can take this kind of information and really show you which format, not only format, but what ads are really affecting. And then once you build up that database, you can then look and drill into it so specifically today that you can develop campaigns for your 18 to 21-year-olds. You can develop campaigns, a different campaign for your 21 to 25-year-olds, and so forth and so on. You can have different campaigns for your different programs, which is what we did. We had a couple of different tech programs, and they appealed to different people. So we developed individual marketing campaigns and let the CRM itself decide on what was working. So yeah, it's just, you need to be involved, you need to have information, and the more granular that information is, the more effective you can make those dollars.
Yeah, and that's a great example of just how things have changed, where things are going a little bit so much more digital. And kind of jumping to the next piece is lead distribution. So what's fascinating about this is it really depends on the size of your school. So if you are a small school that only has a couple hundred enrollments per year, you may have a single admission rep or admission counselor. All the way scaled up to you might have 20 or 30 campuses that each have 15 or 20 admission reps. And so lead distribution becomes incredibly important. And also, we had this little thing called COVID where we had people, like Alan and I are, in this case, working from home. And so knowing when people are online, their hours, what they're working, and really what this comes down to is our all important concept of speed to lead. So if your CRM doesn't handle lead distribution dynamically and easily, you're really missing out, because you have all these scenarios where we can make sure that we're getting the right lead to the right rep who's available now. And so that ultimately allows for the speed of lead to concept come in, which we all know is incredibly successful. But also when we have scenarios where if you have a segmentation of your admission reps, so maybe you have a segmentation where there's a specific program because of how complex it is that really needs to go to a specific rep. Ultimately, you want to be able to set that up in a really easy way to be able to deliver those appropriate leads, to have the appropriate conversation, to give the best opportunity to ultimately enroll the student. So lead distribution to the right admissions rep or right admissions counselor is incredibly important. So you want a tool that's ultimately very flexible in this regard. And also an example of if you have reps that are working remotely, you want to make sure that you're getting leads to people that are actually on their headset, actually ready to go. And so functionality, for instance, is like checking in is ready to go. So the system ultimately knows to send a lead to someone, or frankly, not to send a lead to someone, is incredibly important. So we found that to be one of the keys to success, is just getting the right person to the right lead to the right person at the right time. And then lastly, at least for this piece, is kind of where's your lead engagement coming from? So it's not just about that single touch, that single phone call, a single text message. It's really making sure that you have an entirely engaging process. And part of that really comes into play, making sure that you have a process and a flow. And that can be really, really straightforward. That can be as simple as making sure we speed to lead, your rep reaches out to someone in 2 to 5 minutes. And then if they don't pick up, where the automation comes in is the rep can ultimately check that and it's like, hey, we'll have to message. And the system automatically knows to send them an email address or email rather, or if they've opted into text messaging, being able to text message them. And kind of on and on, these flows can get really complex or really simple. But ultimately what that does is saves that rep a ton of time if there's automation flows there, and also is a much better experience because today it's not just about talking to someone, engaging with someone once. It's about getting to them at the right time through the right channel. In a lot of cases, this is their mobile phone. So for instance, if you're sending out a text message that ultimately links to an enrollment page, or leads to a lead page or something of that nature, that has to be optimized for the phone. So when you're thinking about lead engagement, we really want to make sure the campaigns are straightforward for you to set up, either as simple or as complex as you want them to be, and also making sure we're really engaging people where they are, which we know today is very much on their phones. And I've seen a lot of campaigns out there that are kind of the pinch and squint, which is terrible for everybody, and they have bad outcomes. And so that's where you want to make sure that your system is up to date and really able to utilize mobile technology.
I think the key there, Doug, too, is really reaching the student on their terms.
Yes.
If they respond to a text, then you want to be texting them. If they respond to an email, you want to be emailing them. And the system allows you the flexibility, allows the admissions person the flexibility to communicate with the student their way. And today, that instantaneous gratification really enhances the enrollment process.
Yeah, well said and good example, especially just how people are communicating. You want to communicate back the same way, and that's a matter of your CRM just needs to be able to do that. So kind of moving on to the next piece is optimizing. There we go. See if I can speak here. Optimizing every step of the enrollment process. We know not only the faster you move people through the process, but the more effectively you move them through the process, the more likely they are not only to enroll, but ultimately be successful. So we want to make sure we're using intelligent sales optimization. So things like basically a lot of CRM systems today require the rep to do everything. And your rep spends 10 or 15% of their time just utilizing this system. And I'll tell you that every rep I talk to, one of their number one frustrations is the overhead of just maintaining clean data, which is incredibly important, which we'll get to reporting. However, one of the things that you really want to look for in your CRM is the automation side of things. So for instance, one of the ways that you can do that, and we're talking a little bit to LeadSquared at this point, but other systems can do this as well, is making sure that you have a process that automatically moves people on to the next step. So it's not about having people click and make all these updates, but once someone has, for instance, actually come in for an interview, if you put in the interview notes in a LeadSquared or a leading CRM system, if you have it set up, it automatically will generate the next step. It will automatically move the lead to the next step of the process. And that can save you, especially if you're working with dozens and dozens of leads in a week or a day, that can save you minutes, which adds up to hours over a week, which adds up to 2 or 3 more enrollments. So these are all really powerful pieces that just every little incremental piece that saves you some time, that is helpful. The other thing too is understanding who actually is a good lead. We won't get into too deep here, but this concept of lead scoring, especially if you're a school that's seeing lots of leads and maybe the quality of leads isn't great, being able to understand who actually is a high priority lead. And we do this all through interactions, and a good CRM will do this all through interactions, understanding who actually is likely to enroll. And therefore, you should either spend a ton of time with that person, or frankly, maybe that's the person that it's going to enroll. So you just need to go through the standard process. Then on the flip side, that you need to spend more time with students that aren't likely to enroll and be able to convert them that way. So that can be a huge piece. The next piece then is marketing automation. So I know a number of you are either working with outside agencies or doing your own SEO, SEM, doing your own ad buys. This has just become a core competency of really good proprietary and also higher education institutions. You just need to be really good at this. And this is one of the things that really is unique about LeadSquared in a little bit of way. And forgive me for talking about LeadSquared here, but one of the things that we do is actually combine both a CRM and marketing platform. So one of the things that a good CRM should do is be able to already incorporate all the people you already work with. So if you're working with a marketing agency, all of that information should be able to be incorporated seamlessly, and you should be able to onboard all of your channels. So if you're spending a bunch of money on Facebook versus another medium, you'll know if you're actually getting a return on investment because all that should be plugging into your CRM. You should also be able to do a lot of simple automation. One of the neat things with LeadSquared is you actually can build all of your own marketing email templates, landing pages, all that stuff really, really easily. Or if you're already working with a marketing agency, it's simple for them to plug in, do really more complex HTML templates, things of that nature. But today, just marketing is a core competency, and you need to be able to bring that into your CRM system. And then lastly, sales tracking. This I'll probably bring Alan in for chatting a little bit about this, and especially what he thinks are the most important metrics. But I would differentiate this. Sales tracking is different than analytics and reporting, which we'll get to in the next slide. So I would think of this as very much like tactics versus strategy. But on the tactical side, as the leader of the admission team, you need to know how reps are doing. You need to know what's effective. Ultimately, you need to really understand if you're at a big organization at a granular level, how everything's going. And actually, Alan, let me flip this over to you because it seems like you're ready to jump in with some KPIs.
Well, and I have an experience here. We had several reps working different leads, and having this granular level of sales tracking, we actually stratified the leads from where they were coming from to who was handling them. We had our military expert who happened to be a former Marine drill sergeant. So we funneled all of our military leads to him for different programs. And we had our specialist on for our medical programs. And for anyone that was coming out of high school, we had a high school person who could talk at that level. And then the older career changers, we had a different person for them, and they each had their forte. And we were using the CRM systems that we had at the school. We were able to really help make that connection between the representative and the admissions person and the future student. So it's not just about speed to lead. It's not just about the effectiveness of the campaign that you can do. It's really understanding who's being productive and with what group they're being productive. You know, obviously some admissions people are going to be productive with whoever they're given, and certainly those people should get the general, just a general set of leads. But I think that if you find that if you can drill down to that granular level, you can even increase that enrollment process. So yeah, that's one of those little tidbits I took away from the power of our CRM to be able to handle those different situations.
Yeah, that's a great call out. And also, I'm just doing a quick time check on myself. So I'm going to speed up a little bit because I think we're sharing some good stories, but we want to make sure we're getting to each piece, including the connection and automation, which is such a powerful piece and a big piece of our conversation. So the next piece is really trying to deploy and maximize the value of your CRM. If you aren't able to already use your CRM today for contact centers and ultimately being able to do things like basically outsourced call centers as well, that's a really big hindrance. And one of the things that your CRM should do well is as you grow, if you need to incorporate that should work seamlessly. And it also should work seamlessly with straightforward products. So if you're using call tracking metrics today, that should be an easy integration. You should be able to use things like Ring Central. So if you're stumbling with those things, that's a big piece that a CRM should be able to do. The other piece is a little bit customization. So one of the things that CRMs are getting better at, especially modern CRMs, is low code or no code solutions. So there's 80 million things that a system can ultimately do, but what matters is how your system's set up. And I don't mean your system in terms of technology. I mean your system in the sense of how your admission process or how your school's process is set up. So modern CRMs should conform to you, not the other way around. If you're trying to cram a square peg in a round hole, I'll tell you right now, you probably should look at a new CRM, and a lot of them are like that. We should be able to utilize your solutions in our system, and that's one of those things. Not to brag on LeadSquared too much, but that's actually one of the things we do incredibly well. We have this concept of LAPs, which are LeadSquared apps, that ultimately allow you to customize and just about everything. And also, just jumping a little bit ahead to our integration. Our integration does 80% of everything you want to do out of the box. And then as part of our partnership, we actually customize the last 20%. Again, getting back to that concept of your school is unique. We don't want you to use somebody else's process. Your CRM and your SIS should use your process. And then finally, and again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but reporting and analytics, you should be able to track the first moment you engage with a student all the way to graduation and placement. And that's the power of ultimately linking systems together, is you have that complete data set to be able to use. And that can be as sophisticated as dumping all that data in a data warehouse, letting a data engineer go after it and make all those predictions, or as simple as you need to know 3 KPIs that are important that you need to report out for your own purposes. Both of those ends of the spectrum are possible here, and that's what's really important about the system. So I don't want to take up too much more time, but hopefully that gives you some good food for thought on if you're thinking about a CRM, make sure it checks these boxes. And if your CRM isn't doing these things today, it's probably time to have a conversation and start looking around at what else is there. So, Alan, I think this is now your show. So let's chat about a little bit the power of the SIS.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Thank you for giving us that overview. And I think where we're going to launch this whole thing from is the power of a robust student information system. I think is really important, particularly in today's compliant-oriented world. Managing the student information has always been a challenge for schools, and making communications with the student is really a key to the success of the student experience. One of the biggest things that we strive for in our school, and Diamond was key with us in the student portal, is being able to connect with that student, making sure that that experience is what the student meets the student's expectations. So your information system should be available to your clients, your students, on a 24-hour basis, and improving collaboration between your departments so that the information isn't entered time and time again, that they can see what admissions is doing, and financial aid can partner. And I know that this is a huge challenge among schools. That partnership between financial aid and admissions has always been a challenge. And if they're working on the same platform, if they're communicating and everybody can see what everybody is doing, I think you get that collaboration to the next level. Greater insight into test results. We want the students to understand where they're coming from, where they're lacking. Attendance, making sure that they're aware if they're in an attendance challenge. You know, students often say, I didn't know I was going to be put on a probation. I didn't realize I'd missed so many days. Of course they did, but now you give them a perfect way within the SIS system to see their own and take their own responsibilities for these things. Obviously, in today's world, security plays a major importance. There's a lot of crucial and and private information in your student information system, and that needs to be protected. And that's something you should always be conscientious about. And certainly Diamond and LeadSquared has a robust security systems built right into them. Not to be plugging the systems, but that's something you always want to understand. And understanding the students better. What are the challenges? You know, you need a portal for them to communicate with their instructors. A lot of students won't go to the front of the class after class and say, I don't understand, or, you know, this is distracting me, but they'll send a text, they'll send an email, they'll communicate on their phones. So a system needs to be flexible to allow that type of link between the student and the instructor. And then obviously in any type of networking or after school activities, you want to be able to push out the notices to them. So a wraparound system is really the power of a robust student information system. And obviously that's what we're all striving for. So let's take a little look into what's running behind the scenes. Using student information database can help the students, right? And teachers and the institution, as it makes school administration more manageable. It can make learning easier, and it's an important step towards digitized in the world of education. So this information is really important to have within the system so that it can be accessed when needed. Curriculum details, syllabuses, assignments, and results to the homework and the assignments. This is all visible in an SIS system that is student focused as opposed to just being focused on the school operations. Attendance, like I said earlier, accessing the students' accessibility to their attendance. Project details. If an instructor wants to push out some new information on a task that they're looking for, these types of communications are built into today's SISs, along with academic reporting, grades, achievements, your accounts. They need to see, hey, you know, whoever's helping them fund the school, you know, maybe it's a grandparent, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's, you know, a young couple struggling to make the payments. The student today needs accessibility to those accounts, and they don't need to be clogging the offices with, can I get a printout of my ledger? Or can I get a new bill? All of this should be automated and can be automated for the advantages of the student experience. The benefits of an online documentation management system. So not to read the slide, but a seamless integration. You capture the student within the SIS system. They want to apply. They click apply. They need to move into the admissions process. There's forms. There's a lot of paperwork that needs to be completed. And one of the benefits of a sophisticated SIS system is to minimize the actual physical paperwork. So what we want to do is capture their demographic information one time and populate all of the forms that they're going to complete one time. So it's not a doctor's office with name, address, telephone number, email, page 1, page 2, name, address, telephone number. We have the ability within the SIS systems to bring all of that information in one time and populate the forms. And those documents can flow and be visible by whoever wants to see them within the SIS system, permission-based, and that's an important characteristic. Your SIS system should be permission-based. And you want to step them through the admissions process, right? because we know today's students will be distracted at the drop of a dime. We called it something shiny. You know, they commit to wanting to come to the program. They commit to coming to school. They start the enrollment process and they get a text from their buddies. Oh, we're meeting down at the local bar. Come on down and join us. And poof, they're gone, and you struggle to get them back engaged. Today's SIS admissions module should take them step by step by step, from financial aid to collecting the veterans information, to collecting background information, immunization records, social security cards. And it should provide them with a vehicle to bring in that information with a click of a cell phone. Take a picture of it, send it into the system. And that's what today's advanced systems offer you. And then, of course, if you have all of this in your SIS, it should be available 24/7, 365 days a year. Today's students are not 9-to-5ers. They're not looking for Saturday morning office hours. They want to access their data. They want to be able to continue their enrollment process on their timeline without having to communicate necessarily or call and talk to a human. I mean, how many of us today bank online? When was the last time that you actually went into a bank and did a bank transfer for other than a car loan or a house loan? You know, we're depositing our checks by taking a picture of them. We're paying our bills by online bill paying. If not, we're using Zelle or Whammo or Bammo or whatever else is out there. And let's face it, when a student comes up, talks to the receptionist, has to see the registrar, this is time that takes away from their productivity. This is time where they could be doing other processes and making the system more productive. And obviously, today's SIS systems have to be, it's a requirement, they have to be mobile friendly. There's no such thing as not being mobile friendly. You've got to be able to communicate with your students based on the devices they're using. And I'd be willing to bet that at least 50% of your students don't even have a laptop. And if they do, it's probably a 2019 version. They're all using their cell phones. We talked about this already. One student record, one record throughout the entire journey, right? We don't want the students to bog down at filling out the same information over and over again. Your SIS system should be using a database table that can be populated by each of the different departments and can be cross-pollinated, if you will, with that type of information. Let alone that when you re-enter data, you always run the risk of having a typo or not reading the note correctly, and then you lose that information or you create a duplicate record. So a advanced SIS system would provide this type of functionality, which ultimately, again, increases the productivity of the student.
Yeah, and I think that we're getting into a good segue here too, and thinking about that from being able to enter data from the very moment the student or potential student interacts with one of your advertisements, or ultimately comes in, fills out a form, making sure that connects all the way through from that first contact all the way through everything Alan's talking about. So there's an unbroken chain of a record there. And each step you just add the right information versus rekeying it and all kind of those pieces. It's pretty darn powerful, and frankly, saves you a ton of time.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, I can't emphasize the importance of time. Time management, we all struggle with it. And the more you can automate, the more processes that your people can do, then the more they can get accomplished during the day. It's crucial in today's world. All right, Doug, you want to take our next poll?
Yeah, happy to do it. So thank you already for the folks that have filled out the first poll. We're getting lots of good information here. And the next one we're just curious about is, what is your biggest frustration with unconnected systems? So that this can be literally anything. This doesn't have to be your CRM to SIS. This can be kind of any of those pieces. And we all have them today. Maybe it's your phone system doesn't talk to your SIS or vice versa. So just kind of curious about the things for your systems that aren't working together today. What are those pain points? And part of that, and part of the reason we're asking is, we really want to understand what's most frustrating, so also we can talk through if we solve those problems. And the short answer, and to bury my own lead, is my guess is we can solve that problem. But just curious to hear what are the things that are just grinding your gears. So if you want to fill out that poll with the bottom right, we'd love to hear a little bit more from you. And also, Lisa, thank you for that question. Alan, we'll get to that in the Q&A section. All right. So quick transition here, and really this is the meat and potatoes. So we've showed you what a powerful CRM does. We've showed you what a powerful SIS. But this is why you're all here. What do they do together? How can you automate it? How can you make every rep more efficient? How can you make every single person in your organization more efficient? So you need less people to do more successful work. So let's talk about a little bit what happens when you actually connect systems. So, ideally this is LeadSquared and Diamond CRM, but this could be any system. Really, the power of it is in doing the implementation and automation correctly. So one of the things, and we'll use LeadSquared and Diamond as our example here, is we've invested a lot of time making sure systems actually talk to each other correctly and do it in both directions. And just to give you a sense of how we think about it, we think about it in the 80-20 rule. So our systems are 80% just connected out of the box. It's going to tick off most of your boxes. But again, back to the thing of, we do not want to be doing an integration that's standard. We want to be doing your integration and solving for your problems. So that's actually where a part of our process and a part of our linking is. We spend time to make sure we understand your process and ultimately finish out that integration so it works the way that you want to work. An example of this is, we talked a little bit about the process of uploading all of those records. So to start and be a student today is not simple. There's all sorts of different paperwork items, all sorts of different checklist items to go through. And what's really neat is, if you chose to set it up this way, you can today, we can actually go through, and by linking both directions, LeadSquared and Diamond, if a student doesn't have their transcript in or is missing some of those boxes, we can politely or as aggressively connect them through automation. So we can, if they're assuming they've opted in, we can text them and let them know and provide the link right back into Diamond of, hey, this is where you should be putting your transcripts. Or we can email. We can actually set up an activity for the rep to call if it's getting really close to that start, and we all know how stressful that can be. We can make sure that rep gets a notification every single day or every single hour until that's done, to make sure that it actually happens. So that's kind of a quick example. And really, the automation and lead flow, the big piece is connecting this. We've already talked about a bit, but just to reemphasize, from the very first moment you're engaging with a lead or a student, all the way out through graduation and ultimately placement, depending on how your school's set up, we have that unbroken chain of connectivity and really can make sure that you understand that full journey. So when it comes to reporting or it comes to any of your accreditations, it just makes it a little bit easier. And ultimately, we can build out reporting that makes sense for you to do that. The piece Alan talked about a little bit as well is that duplicate information. So there's two pieces of it. It's not only dangerous to enter information twice, and it's really annoying because it wastes time. It's also really dangerous because you don't know which is the correct record, which is the right student, what's the master record. And so it just completely eliminates this issue by ultimately having the solutions connected. Just each time you actually need to enter the information, it's done, you keep moving. And Alan, this one I'll probably flip to you. Talk a little bit about how ultimately it can increase let reps focus on their high value activities. They're not just doing follow-up emails because they're doing follow-up emails. That's already done automatically. But can you speak a little bit to just, what are the more valuable tasks we want to free folks up to do?
Well, clearly, thanks, Doug. Clearly, the power of a representative or a counselor is really contacting and connecting with the student. It isn't dialing the phone. It isn't sending an email. It isn't even sending a text. It's getting to the point where they can make that personal connection with the prospective student so that they can encourage them, they can inspire them, and they can satisfy their ultimate, they can find out what their end goal is, they can define what they want to be and who they want to be and what they want to do for a career. And then they can connect the dots. And in connecting the dots, that's where the human capital really comes in. So if a rep is tied up, hey, I just tried you on the phone, and please call me when you have an opportunity, send, dial the next number. Hey, and all of these routine processes, it takes away from that student that's truly engageable, that wants to come to school, and then you can build that rapport and drive that enrollment and make it something that not only does the student enroll, and this is probably the key to this, not only does the student enroll, but they're committed to being successful because they have a personal relationship with somebody at the school. And then when that student struggles and there's some notification coming back from the instructor that, hey, Johnny wasn't in school today, if your processes allow, that's where you can increase your retention rates by re-engaging that counselor, re-engaging that representative to communicate with that student and get to the bottom of the issues. You can't solve stuff that you don't know it's happening. So wrapping this all the way back around to what we started this with, which is communications, is essential. And that's really the business that we're in, both on the CRM side and the SIS side, is communicating not only with your students, with your staff, your instructors, and ultimately your alumni.
Yeah, well said. And the other thing to keep in mind here is with the integration, we typically think about these two things in silos. So we think about getting someone into school, and then we think about retaining them once they're in school. You don't have to fall prey to those two concepts. Those two things can be done together and used as kind of one thought through one system. And for example, if we see a student that hasn't been in class for the last two classes, that's highly correlated with a risky potential dropout. And one of the things you can actually do is automate what's happening. If that trigger all of a sudden pops up and say, hey, Douglas hasn't been in class for 2 days in a row, you can either alert the instructor, you can alert any of your staff that's responsible for retention, you can text Douglas, you can just make sure he's okay. And simply something goes, hey, we're worried about you. We haven't seen you. Want to make sure you're okay. So you don't have to separate those two concepts. If you're integrating these data sets, you can actually utilize automation for retention just as much as you can admissions. And that's also one of the powers of linking those two things. And one of the things I'll pause there and say is, this is an example of maybe you want to use that, maybe you don't, but that's in when you do an integration with us, that is one of the things you can simply choose to do. So want to just call that out. And kind of going back to what we talked about a little bit is people are our most valuable resource right now. It's so hard to hire a good admission rep. And so, what we can potentially do, and it's certainly, if you're a school of one admission rep going to 2 reps, by working with us together, you're not going to eliminate the need for that second rep. However, if you're a bigger school, really with the automation of our processes here, you can seriously think about ultimately maybe you can put off a hire a little bit longer because you don't need it, because that person actually has more time to follow up because so much of what they're doing is automated. So if you're starting to kind of run your gears on ROI and things like that, FTEs or full-time equivalents, those are not only hard people to find, but they're also expensive. And if we can save you, 6 months of needing to hire someone, that's probably very much worth your time. And Alan, I don't know if you have anything to build on that.
No, I do, because it even extends beyond admissions, right? We're kind of focused on admissions because we know that kind of drives the enrollment, and enrollment, obviously is the key to a successful school. But what about on the compliance side? What about on the reporting side? Today's schools are getting burdened with all kinds of new requirements, and your SIS system needs to be up to date. It needs to be able to deliver the reporting that you need to meet the challenges, and it needs to be accurate. So all of this integration, all of this productivity really boils down to having this information available and presentable when needed. And those people, talk about hard to find good people. Our biggest challenge was trying to find good, solid financial aid representatives, to finding good compliance officers. These are high-level, important people within the organization, and taking a gamble on someone is not only a time-consuming to train them, but it's also expensive, and if done improperly, can cause problems on the compliance side. So, the more information you have, the better the information is, from lead to graduation, the better off you'll be.
Yeah, well said. And actually, I'm going to link our poll because I think it's very, very important. So bullet point 3 is make interdepartmental communication easy and seamless. So one of the things that has come up highest on the question of what is your biggest frustration with unconnected systems? The biggest piece is getting data from one system to others or other systems. And that's what this eliminates. I also tell you is lots of systems integrate with each other all the time. Unless each party has done a really concerted effort and really thoughtful effort to get the integration right, often one-off integrations are not getting what you want. So that's also the power of 2 companies that have chosen to partner, is the information is just right. It's done. We've put in the time, effort, and money to make it work. And so you don't have the exporting an Excel file that you're then importing into a number system and you're just praying the fields line up correctly. There's none of that. It's already connected through APIs.
Doug, I can't help myself. I've got to pull the plug here. Not the plug, but I got to plug our systems. One of the core to me in all of this, and I guess I should save this for later on, but I know we're running out of time, and I want to make sure that I get this out there. Being an expert in a field is a very long and tedious process. And when you have an expert in a CRM like LeadSquared, and you have an expert in SIS like Diamond, when those 2 join each other, it's a much more powerful system than somebody trying to make 2 systems themselves. So I know that's a shameless plug on our behalf, but I wanted to make sure I got it out there, and I'll now walk away in shame.
No, I think that's a very fair point. And I think sort of to wrap this up and illustrate the full piece, we've kind of bounced around and talked about things that are relevant to each and every department, but really thinking about leadership and ultimately getting unified reporting together. This is one of the things that will help solve a lot of problems, save a lot of time, and really ultimately the reporting that connects all the way through, again, from first conversation all the way out to placement, and being able to run basically anything you need at any time. One of the things that you should be able to do, and our system does, is create custom reports that meet exactly your needs and potentially are even structured in a way that will help you with reporting to your own agencies and to your own certifications. that is something that makes it really straightforward to do with us. And really, that's kind of the power of having those systems linked. And also then to Alan's point is not taking SIS and pretending you have CRM features. Like that happens all the time, vice versa. It's very, very complex and important to get each one of these systems right because they do very, very different things. And at least for our money, we spent the time to integrate so we can use the power of both systems. So that I'll leave it with there. And really, I hope today, obviously we've talked a lot about LeadSquared and Diamond, but I also hope if you're using different systems, this will give you a framework to think about, is it actually meeting your needs? What's a modern system look like? Those sort of pieces. And really, we're happy to talk through what it might look like with LeadSquared and Diamond. But from now, let's actually jump to the questions here. So, Alan, I think the first want to get these in order. So the first question to you is from Lisa, and the question is, are these new workflows in D3? And is ADM integrated into D3 or is it a separate system? So that was actually a very specific Diamond question, but I want to make sure
Yeah, and thank you, Lisa, for asking that. And the answer is yes and yes. What do I mean by that? The workflows are in D3, which is our new web-based SIS system, and ADM is integrated into D3 and is a standalone system. If you wanted an automated document manager or an automated enrollment manager, Diamond ADM could be sold and stand on its own. And then the new ADM is also going to be completely integrated with D3 as we go forward. So it is on both. It's yes, yes, and yes. I love those answers.
Great question, Lisa, and good answers, Alan.
All right, and we're anxiously seeing you, Lisa. We're anxiously waiting for that to happen as well.
And the next question is from Will. So, is it safe to assume that any advertised features of LeadSquared, e.g., automated lead nurture, are available in the integrated system? So, Will, absolutely yes. So, everything we've talked about today is available in the integrated system. Not a gold tier versus silver tier package. It's all available there for you. And we're more than happy, Alan and I will flip to our email addresses to talk through in a little bit more detail just how all of this works. But today we wanted to kind of educate more on how this all works versus specifically LeadSquared and Diamond. Another good question. So, Will, thank you for that question. And another good question is, well, how long is this going to take? If I say I want it now. So that's a fantastic question. And just to give you the quick answer is, it really depends on you. And what I mean by that is if the parties there's two pieces. One, if you already have Diamond or already have LeadSquared, makes it the process faster, obviously, because we're setting up systems. The integration's already done, so you don't have to do anything there. But to give you a sense, if you're starting from new CRM, new SIS, it can be anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. And that includes working with you, setting the system up, gathering requirements, and training. And where it really does come to you is if you can move really quickly and get us the information you need, we can do it closer to that 6-week mark. If it takes a little bit longer to get that stuff out or those sort of pieces, it can be a little bit closer to the 12 week mark. We're not one of these, we're not Salesforce, not to beat on Salesforce, but we can do this pretty quickly. Sorry, that was a slip of the tongue. Salesforce is a great.
Yeah. I know. I'm guilty of similar.
Yeah, there's plenty of great systems out there. It's about lining up your specific needs. And I think, let me just check if we have any more questions here. And I think we are pretty good. And the last one is, what information can flow between the two systems? So really good question. So the quick answer is literally anything that needs to. So we have all of our standard sets of fields that you would expect, name, name, location, et cetera, But we also know there's really important custom fields that either might be custom to your marketing experience, et cetera, or custom to your school. So we have a whole raft of custom fields in that regard. So really the quick answer is anything that you need to integrate or anything you need to pass between the systems, we can just do. That's where that 80-20 comes in. That's where that 20% setup comes to you. So I apologize. We're right at the hour and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So if you want to reach out to either Alan or myself, please feel free to do that. Feel free to screenshot this and we'll follow up with the link to the webinar. But on behalf of LeadSquared and myself, thank you so much for spending time with us. And if you have more questions, we'd love to hear from you. And Alan, I'll flip it over to you for last comments.
All right. Thank you so much, Doug. And I appreciate your time as well as our participants' time, and Rebecca for being our technical assistant in the background. Those people go unappreciated a lot of times in this, and we couldn't have done it without her technical expertise and her patience with my lack of technical expertise, because as you all know, I'm the pretty face of Diamond. So all of our efforts don't go into this part, they go into building you a quality SIS system. And I want to thank you for participating. I want to thank you for your interest. And I hope to be talking to each and every one of you about the power of two.
Thanks for the time, everyone. We really appreciate it.
See everybody.